Support comes from Seattle Restored, revitalizing Seattle neighborhoods with creativity and commerce. Over 95 vacant storefronts have been transformed into vibrant pop-up shops, window art installations, and artist residences. Explore current and past locations at seattlerestored.org.
Support comes from Sunnyside Village Co-housing. Live in mutual support with neighbors of all ages in a co-housing village of cottages in Marysville. It's the best of both worlds. Active rural living by Puget Sound with easy access to Seattle. More at sunnysidevillagecohousing.com.
Happy Banned Books Week? Sure, go with it. From October 5th to 11th, the American Library Association's Banned Books Week Coalition says censorship is so 1984. Read for your rights. In other words, the right to read books being challenged at libraries, schools, and bookstores belongs to everyone. Challenging a book could mean restricting access to it for readers of a certain age. Like kids under 18 might need a parent's permission to check it out from the library. And a book ban might remove it entirely from schools or even public libraries. I'm Katie Campbell, and this week we're hitting the books, yes, even the banned ones, with Charlie Huntz. He's the owner of Charlie's Queer Books in Seattle, and he's all too familiar with Banned Books Week. Now, banned books, or books organized movements and elected officials attempt to ban, are said to contain content deemed unsuitable for children or content that generally goes against quote-unquote family values. That could mean sex, violence, or grief. But this also tends to target books about race and racism and stories about the LGBTQ community. And yeah, those books are definitely on the shelves at bookstores like Charlie's. So that's all coming up in just a second. But first, let me tell you about an event I'm really excited for. The Bainbridge Book Festival is right around the corner. Not just physically, like on the calendar. It's on October 10th and 11th, and there is going to be a lot packed into those 2 days. Local authors making an appearance include David Gutterson, who wrote Snow Falling on Cedars, Seattle Times critic Moira McDonald, author of Storybook Ending, and personal fave Sonora Jha, who will be talking about her new novel, Intemperance. Plus, you can find more than a few KUOW book club alums like Ijeoma Oluo, Daniel Tam Claiborne, and October's featured author, Kirsten Sundberg Lundstrom. Holy cow, that is a lot of talent, and it's not even scratching the surface. The folks on Bainbridge always put on a heck of a show for our literary community, and it's just a scenic ferry ride away. Get all the information you need to have a heckin' good time in the show notes. And if you're thinking, Katie, I want to get even more recommendations for stuff to do, well, I got you. Check out the weekend warm-up on Soundside around 12:45 on Thursdays on KUOW or in the Soundside podcast on Thursday afternoons.
Support comes from Seattle Restored, revitalizing Seattle neighborhoods with creativity and commerce. Over 95 vacant storefronts have been transformed into vibrant pop-up shops, window art installations, and artist residences. Explore current and past locations at seattlerestored.org.
Support comes from Sunnyside Village Co-housing. Live in mutual support with neighbors of all ages in a co-housing village of cottages in Marysville. It's the best of both worlds. Active rural living by Puget Sound with easy access to Seattle. More at sunnysidevillagecohousing.com.
This week, our book bestie Charlie Huntz is here. Charlie is the co-owner of Charlie's Queer Books in Fremont, Seattle's home for queer books and gag-worthy gifts. Charlie's is a hub for queer literature and queer people. And this book bestie is happening smack in the middle of Banned Books Week. Charlie, thanks so much for meeting me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So Charlie and I are going to chat about banned books this week and how that's impacting the store. But what kind of bestie would I be if I didn't ask him to get a little vulnerable with me? You know how I love to do that. So Charlie, what is your hot reading/literary take?
Ooh, this is a pretty spicy take,
Okay.
so buckle up.
I'm buckled.
I am really tired of, particularly, sorry romance authors out there and readers, but if I read His Eyes Darkened one more time, or some kind of lurch or some kind of stomach dropping, a lot of stomach stuff is happening, or His Want.
Oh no.
I'm out. It takes me out. I'm sorry. I get it. I get why you're doing it, and it's the first time maybe it was hot.
Sure.
I can't do it anymore.
No.
I mean, I get it. I see what they're going for. And again, no shade to the authors out there, but it may be time to explore another way of he was feeling it.
Yeah, and you could just say that.
Or he
I
got
liked
an
that.
idea.
With that aside, what books are Seattle readers really loving at your store? Sans Darkening Eyes or including them?
Well, it's funny. Right now, we're in October.
Yes.
So we're seeing a split. There's cozy and introspective.
Ooh.
There's cozy and spooky. And sometimes it's both. Sometimes you can be cozy and spooky.
Oh, totally.
So we're seeing Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, which is very wet lesbians. You're kind of like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It's not scary, but it's eerie.
Ooh, I like eerie.
There's Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle,
Yes.
a store favorite. That one is gross. And in classic Chuck Tingle style, it's horror, but it has heart.
Yeah.
And it has a real message to it. And if you can get past a lot of really uncanny things happening in really gross ways, you get a great message.
Yes.
On the cozy side, there's the classic, just stalwart of a bestseller for us is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Travis is a PNW author. It's going to give you sapphic. It's going to give you coffee shop. Though maybe this is another literary hot take. Owning a small business is not a cozy.
You're like, I'm never cozy in my
Never
business.
cozy. All these cozies are involving someone who wants to retire from, well, in this case, like being a soldier or some kind of rough and tough job. And
Yes.
they want to retire into owning a coffee shop or a bookstore. And I can tell you, neither one of those things are cozy. I have not slept well in a quite long time. So yeah, that would be another literary hot take for you. But Legends and Lattes, Alchemy and a Cup of Tea, The Chromatic Fantasy, these are all great, cozy, fall time pumpkin spice vibes.
Oh no, pumpkin spice vibes. That's why I'm the eerie girly. So I'll accept that for some folks. Okay, but what about yourself, Charlie? What's one book you cannot stop thinking about this year?
Oh gosh. A book that I can't stop thinking about is Rejection by Tulathimutte. It's a great novel in stories that explores themes of rejection, identity, and connection in the digital age. A very wide range of situations, some more cringe than others, some a little more close to home than others, but it's got recurring characters in them, and I really like that in a short story collection. It was longlisted for the National Book Award, which I think is kind of a crime. It should have been shortlisted at worst. They were so brilliant. They're the kind of stories and the type of writing where you think, how did you think of that? Just such good meditations on the topic. And it's something that I've been putting on the staff picks consistently. Another book that I haven't been able to stop thinking about is a romance book called Cubs and Campfires.
I think I've heard of this one. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So it's very spicy. We're talking 5 chili peppers out of 5. It was written by a British author, but it takes place on the Olympic Peninsula. He does a great job, but it's involving bear culture in the queer community. And you have these delightful, spicy romance between 2 big, burly, hairy dudes. And essentially this feature writer wants to do a piece about going celibate for the summer.
Oh.
And he thinks to himself, oh, the only way I'm going to be successful at this is if I go to be a fire watch person, like in those towers in national parks, so that I'm isolated.
Oh, no.
Well, as you can imagine, a very hot, burly camper comes around and hijinks ensue.
Fantastic. So completely like blows that plan to smithereens. Adorable. I love that. Charlie, I want to go back because you mentioned that like owning a bookstore, owning a coffee shop, whatever it may be, being a small business owner is not cozy. It's not peaceful. I wonder how your relationship to reading has changed since you opened the store.
I read now more than ever.
Yay!
Part of it is a desire to know as much as I can about what's on our shelves, a chance to be able to recommend anything in any genre. We're a small staff, so it's not like I can have a literary fiction bookseller who's really involved in that genre and someone who specializes in fantasy, someone who specializes in romance. No, that just falls onto us, like the three people.
Yes.
So I read more diversely than ever. It's allowed me to discover so many amazing, especially local authors, but also give a chance to authors that would have been skipped over, whether they're self-published, whether there's just not enough attention because a bigger bookstore has so many more authors that they're responsible for. So this allows us to, just read like crazy. I am also mentally ill and do not sleep at night. So it's a great time to catch up and read as much as I possibly can.
Well, I'll vouch for your small but mighty staff. I've gone in several times looking for a recommendation. I never leave empty-handed, so I appreciate your wonderful staff. Thank you to the Charlie Square Books folks. All right, so we're getting into some banned books now. Like I said, it's Banned Books Week. So I'm curious about how this week impacts your store, specifically as a queer bookstore.
Oh gosh, probably about a little less than half of the books that are banned in the country are written by LGBTQ authors or deal with LGBTQ themes, and just as many in the country, so another about 40% and higher, are written by BIPOC authors. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of crossover there. So it affects us almost in a way where people see us as access to titles that they wouldn't get.
Yeah.
Being in Fremont, we're in a high tourist area. We see a ton of people coming from red states who have already seen the effects of these book bans.
Wow.
Whether it's in their schools or in their bookstores, they're seeing it and they can tell in real time. So they stock up with us. They bring it home. They either share it amongst their community. They even bring it to their schools to share with other parents. We're seen as a resource in this moment, whether you're here in Seattle or whether you're visiting town.
I have to imagine that, like, seeing someone come in from a state where books are being targeted and being that resource, how does that feel for you?
It's a huge responsibility. It's something that myself and our booksellers take very seriously. It's another reason why we try to read as many different books as we can by authors who would probably get skipped over at other stores. It's a responsibility that we ask the right questions to make sure that we're pairing you with the book that you need in the moment. There are only probably less than 10 in this moment queer bookstores, like queer books only type of stores in the country left. And so as one of maybe two on this side of the country, it's really important that we get it right and match make to their heart's delight.
Yeah. What is the importance of banned books for readers at your store? Like, what do they say about that?
I think they're surprised a lot of the time to find out which books are banned, especially at our store. When you hear that books are challenged, I'll say challenged, because a lot of times where books are either put in a place that's not so prominent, or they're removed from the shelves entirely, which would be a ban, or if they're just, you have to have a parent with you in order to get them, like from the library or something like that.
Yeah. There's challenges, there's restrictions, there's bans. The term banned books kind of encapsulates a lot of different things right now.
When we're talking about even just the straight up banned books, not allowed to have it, a lot of those are defined with very vague terms. And so usually you'll hear, oh, books cannot be on the shelves that have to do with sexual content. Well, Dr. Emily Knox, who wrote the book Banning in the 21st Century America, said for book challengers, any book about LGBTQ issues is about sex by definition. So no matter what the book is about, whether that's penguins, a pride parade, going to the park, a wedding, it does not matter. It's about sex. So that's why you can see so many of our books are challenged and banned. All of these are a range of genres, a range of age appropriateness, and even asexual books or books about friendship. Like those are categorized as having to do with sex just because they are LGBTQ.
Wow.
And usually the response is, whoa, really? If you're from a red state, or this has more directly impacted you as a librarian or as a fellow bookseller, you might be like, yeah, and have you heard that this one and this one? So it's a lot of good knowledge sharing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We live here in Washington. You don't see these bans as often as you might in my home state of Florida, for example, which has a lot of them. But the Seattle Public Library offers e-library cards to kids all over the country so that they can access those books that they might not be able to access in their home state. So there's resources like your store, which I'm sure ships to Florida happily. What are the stakes for booksellers like yourself during Banned Books Week, especially when it comes to selling banned books?
In Arkansas, there's a law which would have actually imposed criminal penalties, including up to a year in prison on librarians and booksellers for distributing materials deemed harmful to minors. It's called Act 372, and it's only not being in effect because of a temporary court injunction.
So there are literal penalties for sharing books.
Mm-hmm. It would be a felony for me to sell those books in Arkansas.
How exactly are they defining harmful to minors?
They're not.
Oh.
Typically what happens when they're so vague is bookstores, libraries will overcorrect. Mm-hmm. So they'll take off hundreds of books that maybe weren't the intention, but would count in some figment of the imagination. They're not going to take the risk.
How do you feel about that as a bookseller? Like to see something like that?
Well, there's the emotional side of it, which, of course, sets off every alarm bell in my body and makes me mourn for folks who won't see these stories and how far back it might push their own journeys of self-understanding and how much more harm will be caused interpersonally. Then it's the logistical standpoint of how much pressure that puts on institutions, whether it's a bookstore or a library. There's 3 people working at my store. Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to read every single book to look for this type of content. Wow. There are also for-profit companies who stand to gain from this, so they can make a rating system that I could subscribe to in order to save the labor. Then I'm also trusting that they got it right. So there's a lot of legal liability at stake for this, because if I miss something, I could be in jail for it.
Wow.
Then in Texas, there's HB 900, which would force any Texas bookseller selling books to school libraries or government institutions to rate sexual content in any book sold. That includes books that have come out ever, the past, present, future, so that those sales also count for retroactively too. So any book that I've ever sold to a library or government institution as well has to be rated. So as you can imagine, that's another really heavy burden to put on bookstores. And it's also incredibly subjective.
Yes.
Because bookstore to bookstore, library to library, government entity, state, county to county, or district to district, it changes your perspective on what that phrase sexual content means. Mm-hmm. And we all know that also means queer content by its very nature.
So you talked about being a resource in these moments. How else do you find yourself in this conversation as someone who needs to defend books, get stories to readers who need them, or is it something else for you?
I think any bookseller right now, I would assume, is feeling a fair amount of responsibility to combat what's happening right now, fair amount of responsibility to be activists in this moment, whether we want to or not. We're kind of put in that place. A few bookstores have even partnered with the American Booksellers Association to fight some of these book bans in court. So whether we want to or not, we're put in that position. Mm-hmm. And I think for the most part, we've all embraced it to a certain degree. We recognize the role that books have played in our lives. I know that my transition as a transgender person would have happened much sooner if I had the access to stories that I encountered in my 30s. Mm-hmm. So we see that in our customers. Mm-hmm. Us, like librarians especially, we just want to celebrate stories. We just want to share really amazing, imaginative ways of being in the world with other people.
Okay, Charlie, one last thing. So you know that feeling when you do finish a book, you're out of that world all of a sudden and there is a void and you need another book to read. We are going to do Recommended If You Liked, Getting Through Banned Books Week at Charlie's Queer Books. And so, Charlie, these RIYL suggestions could be books that pull you back into reading, essays, TV, movies, rituals, food related to books, adventures, literally anything that you want to share. An event, whatever works for you.
Oh boy.
I know, it's a lot.
I would pair any banned book with the movie Matilda, which came out in 1996. It's got Danny DeVito. It's got Mara Wilson in it. It's about a young girl who takes solace and finds a safe space in her school with her teacher. And she has an abusive or negligent life at home. And she has the power of telekinesis and just finds her inner power in books and with her teacher. Yeah. And it really brought hope to a lot of nerds out there, a lot of book lovers out there.
Guilty.
Totally. I think we all wanted to be adopted by the teacher. There's amazing cultural memories from this movie. I think for books, I would start with anything by George M. Johnson. Mm-hmm. Nearly every single one of George's titles are on a banned books list. And they range from memoir in young adult to a new book that George put out called Flamboyance, which celebrates queer icons, really, mm-hmm. or queer figures during the Roaring 20s that might have been overlooked or that people don't realize were queer. Yeah. And it's got these gorgeous illustrations by Charlie Palmer. It's just an incredible book, and it's really accessible. Each person gets like 2 or 3 pages, so it's really bite-sized, and it's great for a younger audience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I also have a couple of recommendations to get you through Banned Books Week at Charlie's and beyond. First and foremost, read banned books anyway. There are a ton on the list. The American Library Association keeps track of the most banned books year to year, but they also look at classics that have been challenged for years and continue to be. These are classics that I grew up with, that I'm sure a lot of our listeners grew up with. But a couple that seriously shocked me are Beloved by Toni Morrison and The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. I read these books in high school and they were really important to me. Like, they challenged me to think differently at an age when those lessons stick. I mean, I think The Grapes of Wrath was the first time I learned about just how devastating the Great Depression was. It's fiction, but it drove that home for me in ways that my, public school history classes just didn't. And Beloved, look, I am a fan of horror for a reason. That is classic literary with a capital L, horror, also set during a really important time in American history, the Civil War. I read these 2 books in high school. There's just something about the way both of these authors write that made it real. And they really stood out to me, and you've got to read them if you haven't, folks. Another book I'd recommend is The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. I've read it several times over the years, including in middle and high school, and it hits me really hard every time I read it. It takes place in Nazi Germany, and our main character starts her own quiet form of rebellion by saving banned books from the flames of big book burnings. And that rebellion grows into a lot more as she and her family realize they do not want to be part of the Nazi regime. It's a really powerful story about fighting oppression, and it happens to be told from the perspective of death, which I just found really fascinating as a young person and still today, because death becomes this foil for the reader in a lot of ways as it just becomes more and more fatigued by how evil people can be towards each other. And finally, I recommend supporting your local bookstore, Charlie's Queer Books, any local bookstore really, as well as the public library, because in case it wasn't clear, I find reading to be a necessary part of a good and informed life. It's really important to read everything from the news to his eyes darkened kind of romantic-y smut. It's all good stuff. Well, I think that about does it for us. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for everything that you do during Banned Books Week and beyond.
Oh, thank you so much. It's literally the best job.
Meet Me Here is produced by KUOW, a proud member of the NPR network. It's hosted by me, Katie Campbell, Dyer Oxley, and Jeannie Yandel. And it's produced by Brandy Fullwood, Kyle Norris, and Matt Martin. You can find more and support the show at KUOW.org/meet. Let's meet up again, y'all.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.
Hey, I'm Ton Vin, host of the Seattle Eats podcast. I want you to join me, Kenshi Lopez Alt, and Rachel Bell for a special live taping of the show. We'll share insider tips, foodie secrets, and answers to your biggest dining questions. Join us Monday, November 10th at 7:30 p.m. at Town Hall Seattle. Find out more and get tickets at KUOW.org/events.
KUOW live events are sponsored by Finney Ridge Painting.